Oh, excuse me.
Welcome to Dan Yawns just before the podcast starts. I'm your host, Brandon.
This week on Dan Yawns, just before the podcast starts. This has been Dan Yawns, just before the podcast starts.
So, still talking about music.
Still talking about pop music.
Pop music, even.
Well, I was just trying to do the song thing.
The thing for the, I guess.
I actually don't think either of us listen to a lot of pop music.
So, yeah, I don't.
I listen to a ton of Korean pop music.
Do ya?
But American is mostly, I listen to like grunge and metal.
Because of you, I actually went on Spotify and found a Korean pop music playlist.
Oh,
and
really?
listened to it for a couple of days, just because I know you like it so much. And it was really weird because I would just be writing and it's in a different language, whatever. And then my brain would be like, understand a phrase. And I'd stop and be like, oh, I understood that. Right.
Yeah.
It was actually really distracting.
I used to listen to Rammstein all the time while I was writing. And then after living for 2 years in Germany, I understand just enough of it that I can't listen to it while I write anymore. It's sad.
I have gotten to where I can listen to music while I'm writing. I used to never be able to.
Like any music at all, even instrumental.
What do you mean?
Like listen while you write.
While I write, I always listen to music.
Okay.
But for years, I could not listen to music with any words.
Okay.
Sorry if I probably phrased that very oddly. But now I can listen to music with words.
With words.
While I write.
Okay.
And it depends on if it's in the like all in a similar genre, right? Like if it's soft, like singer-songwriter music, and it's a playlist full of that, it will blend together to the point that it will not distract me from my writing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But for years, I couldn't. For years, it had to be instrumental.
Yeah, I can do the same thing. I generally can't listen to music with words I understand while writing, unless I will just put on like all of Radiohead, and it all sounds more or less the same.
Yeah.
Or all of Silver Sun Pickups or something like that. That I'll just I can let it be background noise without suddenly listening to the words. But if I have a playlist, you know, of lots of different kinds of music, like you say, it does kind of jar me out of it.
Do you change your genre of music based on the contents of the scene you are writing?
I do. And I used to not do this. When I first started writing, I would have kind of curated playlists for a book and even a theme song for a book. All the John Cleaver books, each of them has its own theme song.
Do you want to list some of those for us?
You want to hear them?
Remember?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of Foo Fighters in it.
Okay.
So book 1, I'm Not a Serial Killer. That's Everlong. Specifically, it is acoustic Everlong.
Okay.
Okay.
I have that album. It's a good album.
It's a very good album. Mr. Monster is there is a song from She Wants Revenge called Tear You Apart.
Okay. Not sure I know that song. So
it's really good. In book 3, there's actually I never found a really wonderful theme song for this one until a few years ago, actually. The official theme song for this is now Don't Think Twice by Kesha.
Okay.
From the Bob Dylan like celebration cover album.
Okay.
But at the time, it was a series of other kind of chick rock songs. The main one was called Are You Bad by Glitter Mini 9.
Okay.
Very obscure. Book 4, Devil's Only Friend, theme song for that one was Razor by the Foo Fighters. So we're back to Foo Fighters again. And book 5 was, I want to say that it was Hard Rain by Bob Dylan.
Okay.
And book 6, Nothing Left to Lose, was actually a song that only really exists in my head. But I had 3 songs. There's one that is only in my brain, right? So
Okay.
you know the Mad World
Yep.
cover that's like really slow and sad
Okay.
by Gary Jules.
That was popular, late 90s?
Yeah. Imagine that treatment done to a cover of the Moody Blues song. And now I can't remember it. Which one is it? It's a Moody Blues song.
A Moody Blues song.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Do you know that what you just said, that there is an entire genre of music that does that? Takes songs that were not atmospherically moody in
And
the
makes
original,
moody versions
slows
of them?
down, sometimes puts them in a minor key, and does versions of them. Mostly they sound like, if you listen to this, Hidden Citizens does this a lot, and there's a bunch of other people who do it. It sounds like you are listening to movie trailers, because they do this a ton to give you that sense of it's familiar yet jarring.
Yeah.
Minor key versions of various songs. I've got another one, Bites the Dust, on one of my playlists, done this way, slowed way down.
Okay, so now I got to remember which Moody Blues song it is. It's right on the tip of my tongue, because maybe I should look it up and maybe someone's produced it.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's the I don't know. Say something to cover for me.
All right. So I now make playlists for my curated playlists for my books, which is funny to me because you used to do it and say we're implying you don't do it anymore.
I don't.
And it's something that's newer for me. The last five
Your Wildest
years.
Dreams. Moody Blues, Your Wildest Dreams, Gary Jules' Mad World version that doesn't exist as far as I'm aware. There you go.
Thanks for that.
Hey, no problem. Anyway, say
So
whatever
why
thing you
don't
were
you make playlists for your music? For your
because
books and
I
books?
have now basically I have built a bunch of Pandora playlists.
Okay.
And I know that Spotify like beats Pandora in every metric, but Pandora is more valuable to me because it suggests songs I haven't heard before.
Right.
And I can build playlists, and I think Spotify Radio is starting to do this now. I can build playlists designed around a specific emotion or a specific tone or theme, and then I get what I want. So I have like the soft, sad piano music playlist, and I have the kind of spooky spy movie soundtrack playlist, and I have all these different things that I can put together. There's kind of the more compelling rock one. There's the 70s folk road trip one. And whatever emotion I'm going for in the thing I am currently writing, I can click over to that, and then it gets me into the right mood.
Total tangent. Well, not total, but little tangent. Have you listened to Weird Al's 70s folk road trip song?
No, I haven't.
Off of his most recent album, which is now several years old. But
Okay.
it is awesome because the lyrics are all middle to upper management buzzwords. Right? So it's a song strung together of talking about
like synergy and
synergy and
stuff.
think outside the box. And it's hilarious because number one, it's a fun song.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, if you think about it, all the people from the 70s who were listening to that music growing up are now all middle management, which is what the song is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is this upbeat, fun, folksy song that is utterly tragic and one of the saddest songs I've ever listened to because of that.
Yeah, because all these people who grew up in the hippie movement and the free everything, and now they are holding down jobs and getting close to retirement. And
I mean, they probably are all retiring now, right? If you went to Woodstock in late 60s, right?
Yeah. Then you're probably retired now.
But yeah. So yeah, that whole album is a gem.
Yeah.
That's the one that has Tacky on it and things like that. And Weird Al is obviously a gem. But
okay, so just really quick, I said there were 3 theme songs for Nothing Left to Lose, and one of them is Your Wildest Dreams. There is also Far Away So Close live version from U2.
Okay.
And then there's a song called Last Leaf by OK Go.
Okay.
And OK Go is known for their crazy videos and they do the weird stuff. Last Leaf is just a very short, sad song that for me encapsulated what I was trying to do for John Cleaver at the end of a 6-book series.
Awesome. Yeah. So I don't use Pandora anymore. I
Okay.
used to. I liked Pandora. I moved to Spotify because I found I wanted to be able to curate my playlists better.
Mm-hmm.
And Spotify's ability to give you random songs like you've liked before is not on par with Pandora's, but it is still pretty good.
Okay.
I've
only
what I found.
barely recently started using Spotify.
And I usually I need a service that will do that, give me random stuff, but also let me make playlists and will not play ads. Right? Like ads just are putting the brakes on any sort of writing momentum,
whatever you're trying to do.
And so,
especially when it's the same ad every 20 minutes
mm-hmm.
for your entire writing day.
I buy or build playlists for my books or my series, and I make them public so that people can see them.
That's awesome.
Yes. So my fans can go listen to the playlist that I put together for Stormlight 4, for instance. I'm doing a new one for Stormlight 5, or the Skyward series. I just have one that's all the Skyward series and things like that.
Okay, so I assume I could go and look these up.
You could.
But because I don't have my phone on me.
Yes.
I'm curious what kind of music. Is this kind of like Epica style instrumental?
So it all of the early playlists were just all that, right?
Okay.
Just like these are the stuff that so a lot of what's his name? Thomas Bergeron, Two Steps from Hell.
Yeah.
A lot of his stuff. So and E.S. Posthumous, that kind of stuff was basically all the playlists. If you go back to the early ones, I don't differentiate. And as my as I've gotten better at making these playlists and using the tools that Spotify has and things like that, I have made the more recent playlists more themed to the actual story. The Skyward one is more like aspirational female singer.
Okay.
Right? With still some of that stuff mixed in. And the new Wax and Wayne one is lots of stuff that just feels like Wax and Wayne.
Okay.
So
is that what to you feels like Wax and Wayne? Because the first thing that comes to my mind is like the Firefly soundtrack of clingy banjos and stuff.
There's definitely some of that. Like there's some like I think the Wax and Wayne one does have even 2 Mumford and Sons songs on it, right?
Okay.
Which is it's kind of perfect because Mumford and Sons is like that's their aesthetic, but that's not what their origins are, right? They just constructed it, which I kind of like how that matches. But there's things like that. There are other songs that just kind of the lyrics feel like they match. There's a lot of guitar, just a lot of guitar,
makes sense,
and a lot of there's video game soundtracks from similar world video games, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Right. There's a really great cover of an Assassin's Creed song that is all a cappella. And cool. It's a bunch of people singing about the underground of London, which is filled with bodies. Okay. And it's gorgeous. And it, I mean, I based Wax and Wayne just a little bit off of that sort of feel.
Cool.
And so, that playlist will go live probably next year sometime.
Okay.
And that one's not up yet, but started to build the awesome. New Stormlight one, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
So are you like me in that the music you listen to while writing has kind of just taken over and is just the music you listen to all the time?
Kind of.
Or do you keep them
I would
separate?
Agree with that. So here's the thing that's happened to me. I used to listen to a lot of metal and a lot of hard rock.
I remember that is most of what you listened to in college.
Yes, because it made great driving music. We're talking about Deep Purple, Rammstein, Metallica. Metallica, by the way, did a second S&M album.
What?
Yes, a new one.
Oh, man.
And it's really great.
Is there an Unforgiven 4 now?
There's an Unforgiven
5?
There is
I stopped.
There's a new Unforgiven on it. Yes.
Okay.
But if those who don't know, S&M is when they get a symphony, the San Francisco Philharmonic, I think.
I don't know.
And do that. But anyway, lots of that. But that's because I drove a lot, and it is just great driving music to listen to. And I don't drive anywhere anymore. I barely ever leave my house because everything I need is here. I say here, my house is, because this is the one we're in right now, is the house next to mine, which is my business. And it is all offices and things like that, but I come over here fairly often. I do go to the gym, which is a 5-minute drive away. But we are probably installing a gym here at the office. And once that's done, like, I don't know when I'll leave.
You will never have to interact with humans again.
Yes, and
that's the dream.
A lot of the time when I'm going somewhere, somebody is driving me, right?
Okay.
Because to the company, my time is valuable enough that if I can be on a phone call instead of having to drive, then it is a better idea for me to be on that phone call rather than
Wow.
So I get driven a decent amount now, not when it's like family time when we're going out to dinner or things like that. But if there's some sort of, half the time when I go get a haircut, somebody is driving me and stuff like that.
Cool. Well then. So
no more metal. That's what that story was about.
No more metal. That's what the story was about. And what has anything replaced it?
No.
What is the music that you love to listen to, but it isn't really conducive to writing?
So I did really like, this is back to metal. I did really like Sabaton's Great War album, which came out 2 years ago, maybe. And I listened to that at the gym. So I will still listen to some of those things at the gym. Sabaton is great. And so, but part of the thing is I consider gym time writing time. And I will usually listen to the playlist of the book I'm going to be writing that day at the gym while I'm working out, because I am planning my chapter or chapters for the day at the gym. And I found an essential part of my process. The most recent Skyward book that I wrote was one of the ones that took the most revisions. We had a lot of hard revisions, and I finally got it to the state that it needs to be in and things like that. I'm very pleased with it, but it took way more work. And I realized that is the book I wrote when quarantine happened and the gym was closed. And I was not going to the gym while working on that book. It's the first book in forever that I have not gone to the gym to think about each day while...
Interesting.
And that might be correlation instead of causation. But it was the hardest revision I think I have done at least in 10 years, maybe ever. So.
Well, there you go. Well, that does make it valuable to just get some, gym equipment in here, and then you have access to it.
Yes, that's part of what taught me. I'm like, I need to have the gym next door, because a lot of what I'm doing is just running on the elliptical machine, right? And so having an elliptical machine with a fan and a little weight machine it's going to be, I think, a good thing for making sure that doesn't ever happen again.
We got an elliptical. It was either my birthday or Father's Day. Got an elliptical, and it's been awesome. I don't use it as much as I should, which I think is true of all gym equipment in the world. But it's been really nice to have at home.
Work for one of those companies for a while?
I did. I worked for Icon Health and Fitness,
right?
Which it's the largest manufacturer of home fitness equipment in the world. If you have Nordic Trek or Proform or Gold's Gym or any of that kind of stuff in your house, I used to write the stuff for Sears and Costco and whatever that would be on the box. And
I think a lot of people don't know that about you, that you were a creative writer as a job before you were a novelist, which I don't think a lot of people know. Creative writing jobs that aren't writing fiction exist, but that's what you did for years.
I was a corporate writer for 8 years, most of it in beauty companies, but that 1 year in health and home fitness.
We did talk about this, though, because Stubad.
Yeah. Stubad, that was a pharmaceutical kind of company. It was a cosmeceutical company, which is all by itself a Stubad word. But
if you don't know that, you need to go listen to the podcast that's called the Stubad episode.
It was like our first episode.
I think it might have been. It's
my
favorite Dan story.
And what I consider my best book is Extreme Makeover, which is the book I wrote essentially as revenge on the 8 years I worked in the beauty and health industry. So,
good book.
There you go.
So, music.
We're talking about music. I want to know, because I love the practice of objectively like codifying and enumerating subjective art and things like that. It delights me.
Okay.
Forcing people to like rank their favorites. So do you have a favorite band or a favorite music album, something like that?
So music for me is one of those things, and I think it's this way for most people. I don't think I'm unique in this, in that I get tired of songs real quick, right?
Okay.
Like I can usually last a few weeks, maybe a month before I'm starting to get tired of that song, right? That I put on my playlist that I used to love. And so songs that used to be my favorite quickly become not my favorite, if that makes sense. Though when I was in high school, I really liked new age music.
Like Tangerine Dream?
Yes, that sort of stuff. So basically, when I was home, I was listening to Tangerine Dream. When I was in the car, I was listening to Metallica. Maybe some Guns N' Roses, right? And things like that.
Okay.
And so if you would have asked me in high school, I would have probably picked one of these new age folks like David Arkenstone or Yanni or Tangerine Dream or somebody like that.
I was super into Yanni in high school.
He had a nice live concert album that for years was one of my favorite things ever.
Live at the Acropolis?
Yep, that was it.
Yep, that's a good one.
So then I would say at that point, my music taste really diversified a bunch as I was going to college. And really, this is the time when the internet was starting up and you were able to, it was easier to find more eclectic types of music without having to buy albums.
Yeah.
Or listen to one of the
when
four
we were in
radio
college
stations.
is when Napster hit.
Yeah.
And introduced a lot of people to a lot of music they'd never heard before.
And so I got very into Daft Punk for a while when I was in college. I still really like Daft Punk. I would probably list, if you had to say, Brandon, what is your favorite album of all time? I would probably list Metallica's S&M. It just combines the two things I love: instrumental power of a full orchestra with really thrashing metal beats. And it's a great album for that.
That's awesome. So, do you have maybe if not a favorite song or a favorite band, a favorite genre?
Favorite genre? Probably these days it's whatever genre Two Steps from Hell is, right? That we are writing music that is soundtracks to epic movies, but without the movie.
Yeah, soundtracks to movies that don't exist.
Yeah.
I love in particular all their horror movie stuff. More so than their kind of more epic stuff. But I do love Two Steps from Hell.
But, you know, I like this find lots of random things that happens by listening to Spotify and things like that. And I am not as anti-pop music. People seem to hate pop music. Once they like music, they hate pop music. I don't mind it. One thing that I found that I like in music is I dislike songs that are too repetitive. There's a good line, and it doesn't mean that usually for me it means that the different lyrics of the different
verses.
There we go. Word.
The parts of the song that are different from each other.
It means that the verses are interesting and different from one another, right? Like that's a thing that I look for. But sometimes there can be a singer who does more changing of their vocal style as they move through singing these same lyrics. What really gets me are the ones that are too poppy and too repetitive poppy. Like Katy Perry's Fireworks. Just drives me up the wall.
Most of her new music, like when she first started out with, the really weird songs like You're So Gay, that was so much more interesting to me than the kind of pop she's fallen into. I want to ask, and maybe you have no opinions on Olivia Rodrigo, but I have opinions on Olivia Rodrigo.
I have no opinion.
You have no idea who Olivia Rodrigo is?
Who is Olivia
You haven't heard
Rodrigo?
the Driver's License song?
Maybe. I don't.
Okay. Well, you said you listened to pop music, so now
I don't mind pop music,
but
is
you
what
don't
I said.
seek it out.
If it comes across in my Spotify playlist, or if I'm on a long road trip and I need to turn on a
Okay.
top 40 radio station, I will then learn what the pop songs of the day are.
And then you'll be like, oh, this is that girl that Dan was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just really want I want to say a thing about Olivia Rodrigo, okay?
Oh, okay.
So she's like, she's like 17 years old, and she was a Disney star, and she had this big song that came out last year called Driver's License. And it's a very narrative song. It does have a chorus, but every verse is this big kind of stream of consciousness journal thing about, it's a breakup song. And what is fascinating to me about that song in particular, but her in general, is things that teenage girls love, most of the world hates.
Right.
And as soon as somebody...
We've talked about that before.
We have talked about that on this show, and it's something that is, as reliable as clockwork, that if teenage girls love an artist or a song or a style of clothes or a type of food or an actor, then it becomes a subject of derision for the rest of the world. How can you like that thing? If 15-year-old girls like it, it must be dumb. That hasn't happened to her. And I find that really fascinating. And I wonder, part of me wonders if Driver's License is just so kind of universal in the way that it is being a breakup song that we all kind of connect with it. I don't know. I have many thoughts on Olivia Rodrigo.
Question, just postulating. Does this effect happen to female singers as often as the male singers that the teenage girls like?
I don't know. I would assume it does.
I mean,
but I don't know.
I know that when the teenage girls were into that Canadian guy,
Justin Bieber,
that he became
Mr. Rogers.
The most...
No, he wasn't Canadian.
The most hated thing, right, for a while. But honestly, not having any daughters, I don't know as well. But I don't see that same thing happening to Taylor Swift, for example.
Well, it depends,
Lorde.
Everyone hates Taylor Swift, even though everyone secretly loves Taylor Swift.
Do people hate Taylor Swift?
I think she is a victim of her success.
She's
in that kind of Anne Hathaway kind of place where everyone hates her because everyone loves her.
Right.
And I think you might be right, because like Ariana Grande, she's got a huge career. It's interesting. That is. But here's my other thought. And maybe this is getting way into the weeds of Olivia Rodrigo. But after Driver's License came out, the song was barely 2 weeks old, and it was already a huge hit. But for a lot of people, including me, the first time anyone heard it was they did a Saturday Night Live skit about it. And the skit was specifically all the guys talking about how even as adult men, they super connected with the song. That was the whole point of the skit. Okay. And I wonder if the fact that a lot of people's first introduction to that song was that particular sentiment
changed,
that has changed the way that she has been received into the music world. I'm wondering. I don't know.
Do we have to rename the podcast Dan Rants About Olivia Rodrigo?
We could. But that's my only thing I have to say about her.
Well, you just earlier said you had many thoughts.
I have many thoughts.
That was 2 thoughts.
That was 2 thoughts?
Yes.
That's a lot of thoughts for me. You've got to grade me on a curve when it comes to the quantity of thought.
All right. I have many thoughts.
I have many thoughts.
Yes.
I could probably keep talking about Olivia Rodrigo, but I won't.
How have your music taste changed as you have become an old middle-aged person, and have your children's musical taste influenced yours at all?
To some extent, they have. I grew up, like you, pretty much in the 80s. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, I kind of missed the early 90s.
Okay.
And I did not get into, even in the 80s, I was listening to oldies music all the time.
Okay.
I was listening to 50s, 60s, and 70s all the way up until college in the late 90s, which is when I was like, oh, wait, there's modern music too? And that's when I got into grunge super hard, several years late, but that's when it happened. And kind of really got into all of that stuff.
Okay.
And so in some ways, my musical tastes have not changed much because in college I loved Smashing Pumpkins, and right now I would say probably my favorite band is Silver Sun Pickups, which is pretty much just doing Smashing Pumpkins. So there's a lot of that influence there. But one of my children, number 2, who just went off to college, he was super into rap, and he got me more into rap than I've ever been. And maybe that's the only huge influence the kids have had on me. I'm more of an influence on them.
Yeah,
my
so
13-year-old listens to 90s music, Pearl Jam, and that kind of thing because that's what Dad listens to.
So far, that's kind of how it has been with my kids, but my eldest is 13. So I assume he will start getting his own musical influences from his friends and things like that. But I don't know, the radio is not as big a deal anymore. And when I was a kid, like radio, you turned on the radio, you found the station that you liked among...
Listen to what was there. Yeah, and there was the 1 or 2 stations you liked in your town.
First album that you ever bought, or first single or whatever, first piece of music you paid money for.
First album that I bought with my own money was Graceland by Paul Simon.
Okay.
On CD.
Mine was November Rain single with Sweet Child of Mine on the back.
Nice.
So, yeah. But I think my first album was a Bon Jovi album. In fact, I'm sure it was. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but yeah. So yeah,
that's interesting. What was the other musical question I wanted to ask you? I don't. Oh no, because you were talking about how radio's not as much of a thing anymore.
Yeah,
and it's still kind of there, but I think my wife listens to the radio. Right. Middle-aged moms listen to the radio, and nobody else does because they're the ones who drive around and don't have
kids. Don't drive anymore. Yeah. Cars are not as big a deal to the newer generations as they were to us. And I think even us, it was more a big deal to us because it had been such a big deal to our parents to be liberated. Yeah. Right.
Well, and it was still for me, getting my driver's license in 92 or whatever it was. It still represented freedom.
Yes.
And for my kids, the internet already kind of gave them all that freedom. They could hang out with their friends. They could text with people they wanted. They could see the movies they wanted without having to go anywhere. But it is interesting to me that even without the radio telling you what to like, there are still very distinct trends of what all my kids listen to and what their friends listen to and what they got into. My 18-year-old is not just listening to rap, but very specifically to a couple of distinct subgenres of rap. He's super into emo rap and that kind of thing.
Okay.
I helped him write a huge English paper on Lil Peep's face tattoos.
I read something about Lil Peeps lately. I'm trying to remember what happened. There was some news story about him. Yeah, so
I don't know. He's been dead for several years. So I don't know what they would have been writing about him recently, but
So I had a train of thought. It was really...
Was it awesome?
I'm sure that it was. I'm sure that it was.
Is it? Because last time you told me something was awesome, then when you said it, it was just kind of.
I did mention that one wasn't that awesome before
but you built it up first.
Yeah.
No.
We have not talked a lot about hip hop, just the rap. Did you kind of have when I was in high school, rap was becoming a thing?
Yeah.
But I was in Nebraska. And Nebraska was not known for its urban density.
Well, let's be more specific. Yeah. Rap has been a big deal in
specifically gangster rap and the rise of NWA. Right, was happening when I was in high school.
Yeah,
and it was starting to create a divide.
Becoming mainstream. Yeah, is the thing because it had been around in Black communities and Black culture for a couple of decades at that point.
Right,
but it kind of hit big mainstream in the 90s.
And it actually kind of started like for years in my school, the divide was rock or country, right? You kind of had to pick your side for some stupid reason, right? You had to define, am I a rock person or a country? Which radio station do I listen to? And things like that. And then it created a third wedge, right? It's like suddenly it's not just Nintendo versus Sega. Suddenly Sony is here, right? There's like a third wedge where people started defining themselves and saying, no, I'm over here in this camp. And suddenly it was a three-way war.
See, I think that's why I listened to oldies music exclusively in high school, was because I had to be different than the rock or country people. I'm like, oh no, I listen to the Beach Boys. I'm different than both of you. Because my wife have to be different than everyone.
Was like that, though. I don't think it was because of different sort of things. It's just that's what her parents listened to. My wife's dad was a semi-pro singer-songwriter. Released 2 albums. They're on Spotify.
Oh, there you go.
And for a while was thinking of making a career out of it, and then backed off on that for various reasons.
Didn't he like sing a Gordon Lightfoot song at your wedding reception?
He did, yeah.
Awesome.
He sang one of his own songs, and then I think he sung Emily's favorite song, which was a Gordon Lightfoot song. So you got to hear one of his songs.
Was it The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald?
I don't believe it was.
I hope it was not Sundowners, because that would be a terrible song to sing at somebody's wedding reception.
I know which one it is because I can hear it in my head, but I have no idea what the name of it is.
Okay.
But he was her dad's favorite singer and became her favorite singer because of that. And their family's a very musical family. I always joke that I was dating into the Partridge Family. I don't know if you had this with Dawn being a music minor.
No, because she's the only
okay
musical person in her family.
But you would go to family gatherings with my wife, and eventually her dad would pull out the guitar, and they would all sing all their favorites together, just like a campfire, except half of them were songs he had written. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool, but also I'm dating into the Partridge Family, it seems like. And so she knows all of those people, but she knows none of the people from our generation. And, my wife is my same age, and yet it's hilarious because some famous song from our generation will come on, right? It's like, some Van Halen song or something like that. I'll be like, who's singing that? And she'll be like, I've never heard this song before. I'm like, you have heard this song before.
Streets Have No Name by U2 that everyone can sing in their sleep.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know it.
It's like she slept through the 90s somehow. She's a Rip Van Winkle. And she spent the 90s having traveled backward in time like Marty McFly. And she experienced all the music from the 50s and 60s and just has a big blank space.
See, and that's how I was until college. And a lot of that, honestly, was you and like Eric Ehlers and people at Leading Edge that said, oh no, you need to be listening to this metal stuff and this grunge stuff and, introduce me to the Violent Femmes and all these other things. And I still feel like I have that blind spot, that kind of early 90s thing. I was not in Nirvana until well after Nirvana had broken up and Kurt Cobain was dead, and then was like, wait, I just discovered this and it's amazing.
Hey guys, I know this really great band. Yeah. Is there a genre that has never been able to really click with you, despite you giving it like legit tries?
Despite me trying really hard to get into it. I have tried several times to be a jazz guy. And I just can't do jazz. And I don't know what that is, because there are aspects of it, like New Orleans jazz. Yeah, that's the subgenre that works best for me.
Yeah, it is a big category.
Kind of grungier kind of style. But like a New York jazz or a smooth jazz, just
the stuff that I was playing
bounces
in my jazz
off
band.
of me.
Yeah. I, despite really, really trying, cannot click with punk, like true punk, right?
Okay.
Like the really raw, early punk stuff, even kind of up to some of the modern pop punk, right? I don't know if you count, like some people count Green Day in that, and I don't really, but
that's alt rock, I think is what they call that.
But like the true punk, it just is so jarring to me that I can't find a way to get into it. And basically every other genre you can point at. I can point and say, oh, there's a song I really love from that, right? Like if you point at rap, I will point out several Eminem songs that I just think are brilliant, right? But even kind of, going back to the lighter Will Smith style rap, there's a bunch of Will Smith rap that I really like, and things like that. And if you point at country, which I was on the rock divide, but that divide was stupid, I will point at some country songs that I like. Though my favorite country song is probably by Metallica, so I don't know that counts. But Garage Inc. by Metallica, really great album where they do covers only.
Nice.
And
Metallica is also my favorite folk song, which is Whiskey in the Jar.
That's from Garage Inc.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good one.
It is really good.
I remember in high school, we had a foreign exchange student from Germany or something come over and got into the middle of that rock and country divide, and she couldn't tell the difference.
Right.
Because if you can't hear the twang in the accent, they're essentially just the same music.
I will say that when I was freshman year in college, I had an unfortunate experience with country in that the people who were next to me in the dorms, and these are dorms where the walls are paper thin. They packed you in. In fact, after I left, this was Helaman Halls for anyone who went to BYU. After I left, they redesigned and gutted them all. They're like, we maybe should not be making people live like sardines, right? You had like 3 feet wide of space that was yours in some of those dorms, and they were expensive as well, which anyway. But the guys next door, in the room right next door, were they were self-proclaimed Hicks. They called themselves the Hicks, and they loved country music, and they would play it very loudly at hours of the day where Brandon sleeps. Which,
which, to be fair, is not when most people are sleeping.
It's not when most people are sleeping. And I actually didn't feel like it was right for me to make them turn their music down at because I'm the one who is, they're not doing it at midnight, right? Yeah. They're playing loud music at like 1 p.m. Or something like that. But I'm not great with the daytime. The whole light thing, it just, I like the darkness. And so Grandma's Featherbed and The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
So they're listening to gimmick country as well.
Those are the two that stuck out to me because they were so over the top, right? They played a lot of other country, but those 2 songs in particular, I just have, even to this day, a dreadfully nauseous reaction to. Those 2 songs, either of them coming on, because those kept me from sleeping for hours.
Wow.
During my freshman year of college.
That delights me. Now you say you married into the Partridge family. Yes. I married into a country family.
Okay.
Dawn's family is from Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yes.
They all listened and still listen to country.
Yes.
And you've met her. You could never extrapolate based on my wife anything about her family because, she's incredibly academic and very, lots of musical talent and all this stuff. And her family is not that at all.
That's amusing to me because you should just ask, what do you think Dawn's family's like? And I would have been like, I imagine them probably living up on the bench above the Capitol building in Salt Lake. I assume you walk in and there's Tchaikovsky playing, in the background, and they have one of those nice foyers where everything is white and things like this. And, some wonderful food has been baked. That's how I would imagine Dawn's family.
And that's not what it is. And I love her family very much. Very good friends with her brothers, with her mom and dad. Love them all. But I don't know how they produced her because they don't share any likes with her at all, except she's a country girl kind of music person, in addition to all the classical that she loves.
I haven't listened to a ton of country, but once I got rid of kind of that weird bias in my brain, I would hear songs and be like, wow, it's a really good song. And my brain wouldn't say, oh, that's country, you have to hate that. And mostly I'm going to like the country that is a little more blending into the rock, right?
Yeah.
Like, the what's his name? Oh man, like the most famous country singer guy.
The most famous country singer?
Yes.
I have no
Who
idea.
did a stint as a rock singer wearing a fake
Garth
hairdo?
Brooks?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's the most famous, but he's certainly the one that crossed the line.
Yes.
Between rock and
Is he
country.
not the most famous? Like
he's the most famous to non-country people
Okay.
because of his rock album that he did.
Right. Well, his rock album was bad though.
Well, yeah, but
everyone knew Garth Brooks before.
It made people like him more.
Maybe that I would say that he was like the poster, the flag bearer for the country side
for a long time. Yeah.
But who would you say then? Do you know country well enough to
say
who is
well enough to say who it would be?
Who sold the most albums? Like Dolly Parton or somebody like the old school?
I don't know if it's like Gene Autry or it's got to be one of these modern people, and they're the kind of people that like play the 4th of July BYU concerts all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Like the one time that I went to Frontier Days, which is the big massive rodeo in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and they have all the biggest country acts.
Yeah.
The concert we went to was Styx, because they always have the one non-country band come in for the Muggles to listen to.
Yeah.
And so
that's hilarious.
I got to see Styx play at a rodeo.
Oh, they probably are so tired of Come Sail Away. They've got to be. It's funny. We could name this podcast Dan and Brandon don't know as much about country as they think.
That is definitely. I don't think I know anything about country. So we arguably know more than we think.
I have been in the. I used to fly a lot before a plague came around. And I fly business class. The publisher, we've talked about that. It's required to pay for business class so that I can get some work done. And it is interesting to when the rockers get in there because you can usually pick them out. And if they're flying business class rather than private, then what they almost always were, and I've actually sat next to a couple of them and asked, they're almost always the because they're not driving, right? They're flying, but they're not flying private. So there's like a special medium in there where it's somebody who's not on a big long tour, right? Because if you are, even if you're one of the big guys, you're just going to sleep in your bus.
You're just going to sleep in the bus
because it's actually more comfortable and better. But if it
takes a lot less time than having to go through security and all this other stuff.
But if you're super nobody, you're not going to be flying business class. And so I've talked to a few of them, and it's usually somebody like from Journey or something like that who is flying to just this one concert like the Cheyenne Days that's kind of not on a tour, but that's like we've booked Journey, right? Or we've booked fill-in band like Journey. And it's really interesting that's the realm that the authors and the rockers kind of merge in, the kind of aging rocker. A couple of times I've been next to like the new guy that they've hired to replace the guy who's no longer in the band. The drummer for Styx or whatever. I don't know if he's actually, you know what I mean? When there's a couple of and that's been really interesting. Kind of
that fun. Is fascinating. I do have to say, since we mentioned Journey,
that
I have an ongoing like inside joke the way I tease my wife about that I can't tell Journey and Foreigner apart.
Okay.
Even though they're wildly different kinds of music, but in my head they're just the same band. And to the point that I put that into the John Cleaver series.
I have my own weird theory about Journey.
Okay.
That Journey actually never existed. There are only Journey cover bands. And they just kind of spring up like, toads being formed from mud. Journey cover bands just appear at music festivals and then end up going on tour. And the legend of Journey exists and persists because of, these Journey cover bands.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've ever heard Journey cover bands, but they sound just like Journey. And it's so weird. Anyway.
See, what that sounds like is an episode of Angel. That there's like a ghost band that doesn't exist and never did, but they keep like spontaneously possessing people or inspiring people. Anyway, I do think that we need to have an outro for Ben. So Ben, here's your outro.
How was that, Ben?